Charlie, talk to me. Okay. I already have it. I already have it. I will tell you guys already what I think from my loose understanding. I'm going to give you guys like the super speed run version of this take and everything that happened. Okay. The super speed run version of this all is this. Okay. PirateSoftware, who used to be a game developer for Blizzard, he did what I like to call an actually I'm a game developer take. And here's the reason why I can say this, because I used to do this all the time too. Okay? So chat. And genuinely, like, I think like PirateSoftware needs to reflect on this, or a lot of people do. A lot of, and what's funny is it's not just like a game dev who's like a content creator. It's a lot of just game devs in general kind of develop like this holier than thou, ivory, what is it? Ivory pedestal? No, not pedestal. Ivory tower. Wow, I can't even think. I have such terrible streamer creator brain rot that I don't even remember the terms anymore. Anyways, so the way it works is a bunch of game devs will have these like holier than thou, ivory tower attitudes towards how like players view their games. And they basically get high snuffing their own farts and like thinking that their takes are right versus not. The reason I know this so well is because I used to do this. I would always be that guy, especially when it was like, but the thing is, I feel like my really obnoxious game dev takes, I got rid of those like years ago. The only one that I think has still caused people sadness or like caused me drama was when I said, and I still believe this, the deadlock is going to fail, but that's like less of like, oh, trust me, I know better. It's more, I just have a feeling. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure this is what PirateSoftware said. It's also like, it's such an obvious like line of reasoning. So to recap the whole thing and to give you guys kind of the context, there's this initiative that started called Stop Killing Games. The premise behind Stop Killing Games at a very high level is to stop killing games. As in what they really want is they don't want game developers and publishers to, after someone has paid for a game, have a way to basically kill that game because of inactive servers or because of certain services being discontinued, etc. Now, that is a giant, broad spiritual argument. And what's funny about this whole PirateSoftware thing is PirateSoftware got one guide, kind of like one game dev idea'd by a single thing that he latched onto and then argued the whole way through. What he latched onto was the classic, oh, well, I'm a game dev, so I know how this works. He latched onto, well, what they really want is they want it so that single player games are not tied to online services, so you can always play a single player game. I get that. And that makes sense. And from his perspective, from PirateSoftware's perspective, he's like also think like low key, he's kind of glazing the game dev companies because he's like, well, you have to kill online games because eventually it becomes too expensive to support the servers if they don't have the player base. And but it's like, yes, dude, yes, we know all that. Like, we get that. But the general idea behind the movement is to be pretty vague so that they can also maybe get protections for that. For instance, let's say I did spend $60 on an online-only multiplayer game that company can no longer support the servers of. It might be that legally courts say, hey, if you do that and you stop supporting the servers, you have to allow other people to then run servers without friction and without legal recourse, right? That basically, if you as the game developer have a multiplayer, so not even talking single player, have a multiplayer game where you stop supporting the servers and people paid for it, and you decide to stop supporting the servers, you have to basically give up ownership of the server, like the servers that run the game. Other people can then pay to support them. Yeah, this is literally Blau having post-dev clarity. Exactly. I think the craziest thing is I was a game dev for an even worse company than PirateSoftware was a game dev for, and somehow I realized this. I have liked some of PirateSoftware's takes before. I just think that this is, I think it's not his takes that I don't like. I think it's his attitude. You have to be able to look at things and be like, shit, man, I was wrong. For instance, when I have said that I think Deadlock is going to fail, if it doesn't fail and it pops off, I'll say, damn, I was wrong. It's okay to be wrong about stuff. Like, it's fine to be wrong about things. I think what he was wrong about here is that he tunnel visioned on the obvious concept of stop killing games, which is, hey, I have a single player game and it's tied to online services. So if I, the company, stop doing the online services, you can't play the single player game. We shouldn't do that. And he latched on to that being the only idea that this initiative could support without even expanding his mind and thinking that, okay, first of all, it's an initiative. It's not legislation. It's not like a legal thing that has to be enforced yet. And secondly, even if it was a legal thing and enforced, you actually could still do something about multiplayer games by basically saying, okay, if you're a game studio and you stop supporting servers for a multiplayer game that people paid for, you have to forego the rights to running those servers exclusively. Done.
Most of you have noticed over the last 10 or 11 months, I've been a lot happier, glowing, really radiant.
Let's hear why, Charlie.
Probably just from my voice alone and this
That's the
striking
context.
Smile. So what is the secret to this newfound happiness of mine? The one trick doctors don't want you to know?
What is it, Charlie?
I haven't been online as much.
Nice.
I've been going outside far more frequently, spending time in the real world.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And as such, I'm sure many of you have noticed over the last 10 or 11 months, internet drama hasn't been a huge focal point of the channel because I haven't seen a whole bunch of it. I haven't kept up with the vast majority of it. And of course, occasionally I've still dipped my tootsies in some of it, like if there's something particularly wacky going on.
Love some tootsie dipping.
And I still cover like news and crazy shit going on with aliens and all of that kind of thing, or if there's like a really
who doesn't,
prankster that got arrested or something, I'll still talk about that. But it's not like a fixation for me like it used to be over the last few years where I was covering any and all internet creator space hoopla. And I want to keep it that way. I'm having a lot more fun not doing that. That being said, there is something that has unfolded here that's like the John Wick killing the dog moment that's bringing me back.
Oh, no.
Very temporarily.
That's how bad this is?
PirateSoftware.
Oh, God.
Yesterday I talked about stop killing games. And there's no way to talk about stop killing games without also mentioning PirateSoftware because of the profound effect he has had on that initiative in its demise. I say demise, but it's not actually fully cooked, but it has been on life support, and PirateSoftware did play a big role in that because of 2 videos he made, as well as a stream, shitting all over it. And that's not even...
I do think after this, I should probably watch his actual videos, okay, and like see how, like, if his takes were actually good or bad.
Doing it justice. He was full-blown tooting on this. He was shitting on it with some fart on it. And a lot of what he was saying about stop killing games wasn't accurate. It was a misrepresentation of the initiative.
I think the problem is he comes at it and he's coming at it and trying to explain it to everyone with the like push his glasses up nose. I'm a game dev. I actually know the insides of the... It's like, yeah, dude, obviously a lot of the companies aren't going to want to do this shit. Obviously they're going to be protective of their shit, but that doesn't mean an initiative can't cause them to change their practices.
And the guy behind it, the guy spearheading it, Ross, finally set the record straight on a lot of the misconceptions that PirateSoftware helped to put out there and kind of exacerbate these thought processes.
And to be clear, if this, PirateSoftware ever reacts to this, or if anyone's ever like, oh my God, Blau's just jumping on the like train to like shit on this guy, I only am saying this because I'm speaking from experience. I still sometimes do this shit. Actually, I was a game developer for, yeah. The funniest thing though is like the best game devs I knew were the ones who were the least likely to, push nose up glass. Oh, actually the players. No, the game devs that were actually the best are the ones that were willing to like listen to player feedback and like be like, oh shit, that's a good point. It's always the designers whose heads are so far up their own ass smelling their own farts that don't listen to feedback and tunnel vision on I'm always right. Like all the game devs with the big egos that fuck up. By the way, speaking of, this is a side note on a game dev that I think, and again, like they've done some stuff, but like look at what's the writer for Naughty Dog at the time when The Last of Us 2 came out. I'm not saying The Last of Us 2 is necessarily a bad game. I think that The Last of Us 1 was a masterpiece. The Last of Us 2 comes out and everyone was so disappointed with it. And everyone said it was because gamers are entitled, or it was because of like misogynistic tendencies, or like any number of other things. When the reality was they just took a risk with the story that didn't land. And do you want to know how we know this today? Look at the Last of Us 2 TV show. It's a different audience that's watching that. And the TV show tanked in season 2. Now you could argue that's, a Pedro Pascal effect, right? Like, once he's out of the picture. But it was the same thing. They took the same risk, right? And there was the risk of that story. Yeah, it's Neil Druckmann, right? And a lot of people say Neil Druckmann, great dev, very smart dude, creates some beautiful things, but Neil Druckmann is a great example of a game dev that is intoxicated and drunk on his own farts. 100%. And his response to that criticism of The Last of Us 2 is also the reason you can just look at how the TV show, we'll talk about this. Remind me to talk about this after this video. I want to pull up for you guys, the fucking TV show stats and the fall off of Last of Us season 2. Because the show fell off and got just as much credit, just like the game did. It wasn't just gamers that hated this. TV show watchers, because The Last of Us got to be a pretty popular normie mainstream TV show. And a lot of them were like, what the fuck happened to this story? Anyways, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Continue, Charlie.
That just weren't accurate for what the initiative was actually aiming to do. He finally set the record straight, and I, of course, wanted to talk about it as someone who does actually care about it. Now, as I've said, I've been...
Can you bring Miz as your +1 to the phase party? I don't even know. I don't think I'm invited to the phase party, Jimmy Page. I think I'm too old. Guys, I'm too old for the phase party. I need to be like 6 years younger to go to the phase party. I don't think they let in 33-year-olds at the phase party. Which is why instead on the 4th of July, I think the plan is we're going to be opening a hot dog stand in the Castro. Because I thought that'd be a fun stream idea.
A little more off the grid. I bought a fucking farm, so I've been, living off the Lord's land recently, and I've missed a lot of the internet happenings. So PirateSoftware's previous anime arcs of drama, like with World of Warcraft, and the one after that, 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 I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. I only got little tiddlywinks, little morsels of lore about it in a few clips, so I never really even understood what was going on there. So
I have a question. What happens if PirateSoftware is given the feedback that like, hey, you might have a bit of an ego and you're unwilling to admit when you're wrong about things? Like, what's your response to that?
PirateSoftware's response to everything that happened yesterday really caught me by surprise. That was a subversion of my expectations bigger than Game of Thrones Season 8.
Yeah, Hutcher, I did. I think it's really hilarious to me that entire community is so butt mad at me for putting out a video 10 months ago about their stuff and then not being refuted, and now it's my fault that everything is going wrong for them.
I cannot believe his ego. His ego is so out of control, I feel like he's only a week or two away from exclusively referring to himself in third person, like Stone Cold fucking Steve Austin.
Oh, no.
And that's the truth, because PirateSoftware said so. Some shit like that. It's crazy how he's responded. The smugness is nails on a chalkboard. It just makes you feel icky listening to it. And he goes on, that same talking point.
Someone needs to send me that clip of
About
Dr.
how,
K.
like, oh, I guess I'm fully to blame. I guess because I made those videos 10 months ago, it's my fault entirely that this whole thing crashed and burned. Yep. Oh boy. Time to play a sad song on the world's smallest violin for the Stop Killing Games movement. All because Big Bad Pirate Software took it all down by himself. Like, it's crazy. No one's saying that. Like, there is no one out there that is saying it is entirely Pirate Software's fault that Stop Killing Games hasn't been more successful in its endeavors. But there's irrefutable evidence that you had a detrimental effect, a majorly damaging effect on Stop Killing Games because of your misinformation that you spread about it in 2 videos and across all your streams, and not once have you bothered to correct that record. And he has said that it hasn't been refuted in 10 months. That is fish paste. That is turbo horseradish. Go to your
I like turbo
comment section
horseradish
on your videos to see everyone refuting you, as well as the innumerable other gamers and voices out there that have taken down those talking points and debunked a lot of them and proven that you just didn't understand it. And that is the big...
I think what's funny is I haven't watched his videos, and we'll watch the videos, but I swear this is not a pre-watch thing. From literally just hearing clips, I think I know what he probably was trying to say. I think he was trying to put on his big boy game dev pants and explain that Stop Killing Games could only be about protecting single player games that are tied to online services, because no game company, and there was one other part that I heard about this where it was like, he latched onto this idea that it was impossible. Like, what you'd be asking would be like, if World of Warcraft shut down, you would have to make World of Warcraft a fully single player experience, according to Stop Killing Games, which no one was ever saying. Like, again, I think I really don't think he like expanded his mind like to some other possibilities, which would be, okay, let's say Blizzard decided, let's say we're in the year 2069 of my VR world, and Riot's MMO has taken over the world and no one plays World of Warcraft anymore except for like 12 dudes, right? And they still want to play World of Warcraft. I think what the solution for Stop Killing Games would be, like what their initiative would say, is that legally, based off the money they've spent in it or based off some precedent, they are allowed to host a World of Warcraft server. That's, I think, like that would be like a outcome I think Stop Killing Games would want. That for online games, you as the game studio, publisher, whatever, basically forego rights to like sue people or come after people if you no longer support a paid for game as a service. Someone else gets to like then go and pay for the servers. Like, it's not that crazy of a thing to ask for, honestly.
Big problem. No one hates Pirate Software because he doesn't agree with Stop Killing Games.
Yeah, let me say that. Any company could just release the dedicated server software and be done with the game. Yeah. This is basically saying if it's a paid for, like Stop Killing Games is basically saying if it's a paid for game or if a certain amount of maybe monetization has been achieved by a game, studios have to do that. That's not that crazy of a take.
The reason so many people are angry at him, myself included here, you can disagree with the movement all you want. If you don't like the initiative, I'm not your fucking dad. You make your own choices there. But the reason so many people, myself included, do
Little
not
Dark
like
One, thanks for the
Pirate Software is
Prime.
handling all this, is he is
And Soul Tang, thanks for the Prime.
To just admit any level of fault, that he was wrong about anything. And that couldn't be more clear from these clips as well as his tweets that he's made. It's actually his tweets that really sent me off the fucking rails here, off my gourd. Let's start with this little nugget here that he deleted from last night. So he tweeted directly at Ross, the guy behind.
I put out 2 videos disagreeing with your initiative 10 months ago and haven't talked about it since. Now your initiative has failed and you're blaming me for 33 minutes of the hour video covering it. Your community is out in force. Shit on streams, hate message. Okay. Since you're so sad, I'm cutting my response to pieces, try to make some. I'm going to drop my videos here to show the actual context. There's also a massive pinned FAQ on the first. What?
Stop Killing Games, talking about how he made those videos 10 months ago, and since then, his community has been nothing but hateful. A scourge, a fucking tyrannid threat that he must destroy. Your community is fucking rabid, and it's shit to deal with for anyone on the other side of the argument. Why do you think I haven't talked about this shit in 10 months? Why do you think we auto-mute anyone bringing it up in chat? Because it's been rage bait and shit flinging the entire time. And just goes on about like how he is the victim of Ross's toxic, terrible community, which is hilariously hypocritical coming from PirateSoftware, when in his videos and his streams, he makes it very clear and is very rude about how much he dislikes not only Ross, but the movement. And it's not like he's being very professional and polite about it, you know, buttoned up. Listen to it.
So this was my first encounter of him.
Oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. Now, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass. The whole thing. That sounds stupid.
Maybe I really just don't maybe I'm very maybe I have just a chat. Am I just really unclear about what this movement is basically? My base understanding of the movement is nothing is written in stone. It's just a initiative to get lawmakers to look at this, to basically come up with a way of, hey, if I paid for a product, the company cannot just take the product away from me. It's basically just consumer advocacy. And it doesn't even seem that crazy to me. I feel like the really low hanging fruit is is the one which I know PirateSoftware, he has to agree with this one. If he doesn't agree with this one, he's insane. The obvious one is this. If you have a single player game, truly single player, but it's like tied to some online service and you can't play it offline and then they shut down those servers, that's bullshit, right? So it's to protect against that. I don't know why it wouldn't protect against a multiplayer game, though, that you paid for, that if the company decides to shut down services, even if the protection is not that the company has to permanently support servers or create a single player version of the game, I don't think it's even arguing that. It's like, it could just be as simple as the company relinquishes rights to go after people hosting independent servers for that game, which would not be that crazy of an idea.
But it's shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Ross and his community that are actually the assholes here. Brother, come on, you can't possibly be calling the wambulance with a side of french fries here about people being mean to you when you are literally the one that started the shit flinging and name calling. And by the way, Ross never even addressed this for 10 months because he didn't want to dilute the initiative into just having it be boiled down to drama between creators, which I think was actually very big of him. The only reason he's talking about it now is because it's at the end of its life and so many people still don't understand it because of someone like PirateSoftware misrepresenting it. So he's finally setting the record straight there. Anyway, he did delete that tweet, but just a little while ago he made a new tweet, a very long tweet as well as a series of tweets under it in regards to this whole thing. And in all these words, all this mumbo jumbo, not once does he say he was wrong about anything. In fact, he just continues to double down, even proudly stating he is doubling down. Wow, how incredibly noble, doubling down on things you are
I don't know why he's so keen on taking the side of the game companies. And this is coming from the guy who used to work for Riot and used to glaze the game companies. The only other reason I know this is kind of crazy is because this made some circles in some of my ex-Riot strategy friends. And some of them had even messaged and were like, yeah, it's a consumer rights thing. Obviously the game publishers would be against it, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if something like this happened, you know? I mean, it doesn't, again, it's like saying this. Let's say Riot were to shut down League of Legends. Okay? It's not saying that because of all of the money people have paid for skins on League of Legends, Riot must now make a single player version of League of Legends that people can still play. it would be, you know, like what a realistic outcome would be is Riot Games would then forfeit the right to come after people who independently host those servers. Like, yeah, they would still own the IP that is League of Legends. Like, they would still own the IP. But if they wanted to stop, and by the way, we don't even know if that kind of argument would go forward for a game like League of Legends, because it is technically a free-to-play game, a freemium game, right? So it might be, again, it might be that lawmakers decide, no, that's not the case. But if you paid a box price for a game, say like for, you know, Overwatch 3, you paid a box price of like $60, the legislators might be like, yeah, cool. If you shut down and you can only play it online, there's no single player, and like, okay, cool. If you shut down the servers, you cannot go after people who then host independent servers.
Provably, blatantly wrong about. We don't need to hit the Jumbotron for the replay on yesterday's video going over so many of the things that he was incorrect about in regards to the initiative. But the point is, that is an issue that I really thought that he would address. Be like, hey, yeah.
Well, I guess we should watch Charlie's earlier
Sorry
video.
about that. I didn't mean to misrepresent it. I still don't fully agree with it, but I do recognize that I had some errors here in my coverage. That's what I was expecting. That is not what we got. And it prompted me to reach out directly to him, to talk to him, to see, like, why isn't he acknowledging that? Is there a reason? Like, what is going on there? So I did. He made it very clear he was not very happy with my coverage of Stop Killing Games, which is fine. I think that's totally fine. I'm not going to leak DMs or really go in depth on our private conversation, but the point of me reaching out to him was to talk about his refusal to acknowledge that he did, maybe unintentionally, misrepresent Stop Killing Games. And it led to a just shy of 2 hours, like, circular argument that ultimately got us nowhere. He was more focused on his qualms with Stop Killing Games and really liked to challenge me to prove him wrong about some of his hang-ups with it. And when I would mention, like, the behavior aspect, like, hey, you did miss...
Here's actually an interesting comment that is a counterpoint to this. I even try to point out good counterpoints. I think the big thing is independent servers would have to stay the same way the game left, no? Any development after would be using the IP. That is a good question. And that would come down to the lawyers and I think a part of this is basically like, I think the way you could almost frame this is like this. If you, the game studio, are owning the server and making money off of it, you can enforce your IP shit. As soon as you decide to not host that server and people have paid that much money and then you give up the server, people can mod and do what they want, right? Now, obviously, like, so if they want to make custom RE skins then in League of Legends after it's been shut down, it's like, I mean, I feel like that kind of IP infringement already happens, if that makes sense. Yeah, like Nintendo wouldn't want an independent Mario Kart server to feature nude models, and that is reasonable of Nintendo to not want that. Yeah, but here's the thing. That kind of shit already exists. That's actually nothing new, because that has occurred with even before Rockstar bought 5M. Even before Rockstar bought, like, actually, this is a great example. 5M is a great way to look at this, because those are servers run independently of Rockstar that are running, you know, online versions of the game. And every now and then, some of those servers would do shit that would basically cross the lines of what Rockstar was okay with, and Rockstar, or Take-Two rather, would come down with a legal ban hammer and be like, you can't fucking do that, right? So I think it'd be something similar to that. Blau, how to take charge in your life. Wake up early and write down one thing you're going to do that day. That's what helped me. Yeah, like, and again, there's like, you know, or IP owners could retain all their rights except a specific enforcement right. Yeah, they could get a specific enforcement rights to IP or like modded content, right? Or something like that, right? You could even build a 12-month rest period of inactivity for enforcement rights. I think the craziest thing about all this is, chat, we're already arguing all of the like weeds and nitty gritty things that even if it's like, oh my God, that seems so complicated. It's like, yeah, that's complicated. That's for the lawmakers to create and figure out how they want to create it and enforce it. Not only that, but it's not like laws are written in some foolproof way. Laws are written and then there is how well are they or aren't they enforced, right?
Misrepresent it, and I'd give him a timestamp. He'd then instead say how I'm wrong for thinking that he misrepresented it. We got nowhere. So I want to just publicly say this again. There are plenty of things you can disagree with when it comes to the Stop Killing Games initiative. I'll put links to it if you want to learn more about it, and you can form your own opinions on it if you want to support it. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's super normal.
I kind of want to know.
Reach out to try and champion that Pirate Software should become.
Pies. I want to. Normally, I would finish a Charlie video, but I feel like we should actually pause it and watch his previous video. Mexican food tier list. Pirate Software, one of the Stop Killing. Okay, here we go.
Soul, what a pilot.
This is what I was able to watch. I literally only watch. Yeah, so you guys can see I literally watched like the first like 40 seconds of this. Okay.
Pal, tough guy. You feeling lucky? Yeah, that's right. Spirit fingers. Do you know why? Because it's been about 30 hours since I last slept, and I've done 3 different intros, all of which crash and burned, and I am off my gourd, so now...
Wait, normally I'd finish a Charlie video, said the man who never finished a video. I have finished... Wait, I usually always watch fully through Charlie videos,
I'm going wacko mode. But, even in my...
Also, chat, don't clip this and send this to Charlie Moist Critical. And I know a lot of people like Charlie. I actually really don't like Charlie. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't like him. Which is why I try to watch his videos on stream so that you guys can watch to take ad revenue away. I'm kidding. That was actually a joke. That was actually a commentary. I realized that maybe I flew too close to the sun with that joke.
My sleep deprived state, I am still lucid enough to recognize how
I'm kidding.
cattywampus the AAA gaming space has become.
Again, I will state once again. You can hate Ethan, like the whole Ethan Klein debate, all that stuff. You cannot do that. Like Blau ink falling down. Guys, again, I want to be very, like, this is a funny thing. It is a privilege to be able to just react to someone else's content. Like Charlie is the one who put together this content. It is a privilege for me to react. Even if I hate Charlie, even if I'm watching Asmongold's content, it's still a privilege to be able to get free content of me reacting to their content. Doesn't matter whose it is.
Like the gaming industry has so many things that I have bitched and moaned about. Probably the biggest
people know I'm
practice
joking.
that I've been most vocal about, not exactly shy on, is the topic of you will own nothing and be happy. The Ubisoft motto. God rest that company's soul. What a pile of dog shit. But it's not just Ubisoft. That has become a prevalent business strategy across the gaming industry.
I will say one area I know I disagree with Charlie and a lot of other kind of gamers about is I don't think ownership over physical copies of games matters that much. I don't really care that much for that. I also don't care if you don't have full ownership as long as that not having full ownership is reflected in the price. Then I don't care as much either.
Own nothing, you will be happy. You're basically, you come away with the idea of ownership of whatever games you purchase. I've worn this topic out more than a fleshlight in a frat house, but it is something I am very passionate about. The gaming industry is getting...
I mean, more than a fleshlight in a frat house that's just wild. That's just, wow, that one's beautiful. That might have been my favorite Charlieism. Now, normally, chat, if I was a bad React streamer, what I would do is I would continue to play Charlie's content and fill up my stream with it, with the transformative content of my chair being in the background. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go get a coffee and I'll make sure I react hard enough to the video, okay? We got to make sure I do react hard enough. Hard reactions. Have I been reacting hard enough? Fuck, I gotta react more. Honestly, I think it's the facial expressions for the thumbnail. Damn, told him to turn on the noise gate. Now you can hear his clappers. Oh my god, wait. Is it that bad? Where's my fucking noise gate? I had it like here. Okay. Keep going, Charlie. Tell us.
Getting away with more and more garbage where they'll take a shit in your mouth and you're expected to thank them for adding some flavor to your taste buds. It's terrible. And there is an initiative that has been aiming to fight back against a lot of these practices that I think really need some big overhaul. And it's an initiative.
Wow, did
that
you
I
see
think a lot of
Michael's
you
new
are probably very
short?
familiar with.
No,
It's
send it
called
to me.
Stop Killing Games. And I've followed it since its inception. I've talked about it on stream quite a few times, though this is my first video going over it. And I regret that now because I see it wasn't going as well as I thought it was. Admittedly, I didn't follow how successful the initiative was, only...
Pause. I got distracted. Listen, Michael Reeves stuff, I'll always click
My
on.
girlfriend likes to visit me while I'm working in the garage, but today she got mad at me because I locked her out on accident, so she asked me to do this.
You want me to let you know every time I lock the door?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because I'm a good boyfriend, yeah. I'm gonna build a device that sends her a DM every time the door gets locked. The key is gonna be this little potentiometer. Its resistance changes when you turn the knob. So if we connect it to the lock, then we can read a voltage off. You see the vision, right? You see where I'm going with this. Fuck that light. Instead, we're gonna use a microcontroller to read the voltage. Also, I still need that light. And 100 lines of code and some hot glue later, it's done. And looks super good. It's exactly what my girlfriend asked for. Let's test it out. Lily, I'm gonna leave this here, okay?
Okay. Mike, are you serious? He made an app just to lock the garage.
Come on, check it out.
How does this work?
Isn't that awesome?
You're so petty.
No, it's everything.
I love Michael. I love Michael so much. I realize that the key, I learned this from the hockey stream too, chat. I cannot defeat Lily. It is impossible. The only person who can truly defeat Lily Pichu is Michael Reeves. This is just...
You wanted, right?
You were so...
It's what you wanted, right?
Is this really easier than you just messaging me?
Yes.
You were
It's
so
everything you
petty.
want.
I
It
just
fixed
asked
all
you
our
to-
problems.
I
just asked you to tell
And that's
me
why
to
I'm a
lock
good
the door.
boyfriend.
this is incredible. I was so down to pause our other react just to watch this. Thank you for sharing this. Someone who can invent things to annoy you is amazing. Wow. All right. Sorry,
that it
Charlie,
was aiming
continue. I
to
didn't mean to
do
keep
good
interrupting
for
you.
consumers, and
Right.
that it was taking
Good for
proper
consumers.
steps legally to get there, and it was going through all of the right channels.
Right.
And now
Reacting.
today I watched
I'm
a
reacting
video
to this
from
hard.
the guy that's spearheading
Reacting
this. His
hard.
name
Yes,
is Ross.
agreed.
He posted a video called "The End of Stop Killing Games," where he's giving an update on where everything's at and how it's kind of at the finish line here, with a lot of failure to show for it, with only a few other chances to fight back. Now, before getting into the weeds on the topic, I want to get this in the beginning because I imagine the vast majority of people won't watch the whole thing. I'm putting a link to the full video on Stop Killing Games, as well as a link to where you'd go to help support the Stop Killing Games initiative, because there's only a little bit of time left for the most important parts of it now that it's at the end. So if you know what the movement is and want to support it but didn't know where, the resources are in the description, or if you want to get it right from like the source.
You know, one of the issues I think that Stop Killing Games has in a lot of these things, I just don't think people care enough, and I actually just don't think it's as big of a concern. It's really weird, this idea that like, oh, we should have protections for the games that we purchased probably should have been a bigger issue, but like, and I need someone to like really I need someone to like actually put their foot down and do a deep dive on this. We need to talk about gambling. And I hate that I'm still interrupting this video to say this. We need to talk about gambling and betting, because it's really like Riot's now doing their sports betting on Valorant and CS:GO. When I watch the NHL playoffs, instead of like random stats that they used to have funny random stats about players, or like, well, all of the like right coming back from commercial break was always talking about the fucking parlays. And honestly, the only parlays I want to talk about are the ones that fucking Captain Jack Sparrow would reference, right? I don't want to know like what if I'm over under on. It is crazy to me how infected. Yeah, exactly. It's like all of sports is infected with sports betting. All of gaming is infected with loot boxes. I don't, and no one, it's funny, like no one even ever criticizes CSGO for this, but like, dude, that's the CSGO case system is just like all of these things are just crazy gambling. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not saying that we like can't have like some form of gambling. I'm just worried that like everything is gambling now.
I have a link to his video, but I want to go into it myself.
Even Labubu's, like I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't seem as sinister as sitting down at a slot machine in a Las Vegas casino, despite the fact that it literally is engaging the same dopamine pathways.
Here because it is a topic that I do.
Anyway, sorry, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
But for those that don't know anything about Stop Killing Games, I'm going to let
side note chat. We cover all of the gambling and betting drama tomorrow.
Him explain it in his own words. That way you can get an actual, correct, informed explanation of what the initiative is.
Okay.
And the reason I say it like that, kind of like fucking all, pinky out, snooty, is because a lot of people don't even really know what this is because of people like PirateSoftware completely misrepresenting what the initiative was.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers.
I'll pause right there. The simplest, bare bones, birthday suit, butt-ass naked explanation for what this is. Stop destroying things that people have paid money to own. I think that is a very understandable, very reasonable take.
I genuinely don't see how this could be bad, because even if Stop Killing Games has crazy demands that couldn't be put into practice, the general principle of it just makes sense. Like it that just makes sense to me. A classic consumer protection.
Very agreeable. Now,
What's up, Carl Mason? What's up,
different
chat?
Spot in this video because I think it's important to have this in the beginning because it's something a lot.
Wait, well, I gotta read this. Well, you gotta see. You guys, wait. I have to read this in like a fucking. There's a voice for this. Junkai, aka Blackwood. They say, "Well, you gotta see it this way. Like I tell everyone why I gamble. Every day you step out of your home, you're gambling. This might not be currency, be gambling your life. A human life is a gamble, no matter what it is, our nature, physically and emotionally. So I see why gambling is everywhere." Honestly, that's a fair point. Counterpoint. Okay, if all of human life is a gamble, why are we gambling shit even more then?
A lot of people have heard that comes from someone that is just wrong about it. It's the PirateSoftware portion. Ross is addressing the video PirateSoftware made many months ago. Ross even says that he didn't plan on doing that because he didn't want to be seen as using this for drama farming, because it would start to make the movement look less of like a legitimate initiative.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. I give my girlfriend flowers. I get a common thank you. I get a rare kiss or a legendary. Jesus Christ.
And more of just like drama slop content type thing. But he finally starts talking about PirateSoftware here because it's at the end of the life cycle of this initiative and it's not looking promising. So he's willing to do anything to try and set the record straight and hopefully start getting more momentum back to the movement, because the damage PirateSoftware did to it through his video was substantial.
This video came out right as we were building momentum. Then, except for one boost in Germany, the signatures started drying up like clockwork. Ford does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically, we don't want single-player games to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them. And as much as they want it to be about specifically games where it is a single-player game.
I knew he was going to tunnel in on like the whole single player game thing. I knew it, dude. Like
game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists, instead of just targeting single player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. It's the first line on the website. Stop
Killing Games is okay. Finally, we get to see what the Stop Killing Games, a consumer movement, started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. Cool. Even in the example of like League of Legends that I gave to you guys, that one gets tricky because it's like, well, League of Legends is a free to play game. You didn't have to pay money for it. Versus say like Overwatch, where it's like you did pay money. It's a games as a service, but it's like even still, that's all shit for like, am I crazy? Or is it like all of that is for like legislators in Europe or North America or wherever else this initiative gets? That's for the legislators to figure out how they specifically want to enforce it. Boy to Legend, what are we talking about? Games and protecting them.
Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative.
He didn't even get the Cliff Notes summary right. He missed all the QTEs and got the bad ending on understanding the initiative from the jump here.
Damn,
Ross is
good
correct.
reference.
This has nothing to do with just single-player only games that require an online connection, that when the online connection is severed, you lose access to the game. Like, yeah, that is included in all of this.
That's like the
but it's
low-hanging
not,
fruit.
Like what the whole
That
movement
one,
about.
I think
And
that
for some
one's like
reason,
the low-hanging
PirateSoftware
fruit.
is stun-locked on that, like fixated, as if that is the actual like meat and potatoes of Stop Killing Games. They need to be more specific in their language about it being single-player, always online connect.
Okay. PirateSoftware. I understand the entire argument of Stop Killing Games versus PirateSoftware can be understood with two simple concepts. I figured it out. Number one, PirateSoftware does not recognize that this is an initiative to start legislation, which would then have the specific things that are or are not enforced and the specific language for things that is or is not enforced. As an initiative, it doesn't need to actually have all of those specifics figured out just yet. That's number one. Number two, and this is where I think PirateSoftware's ego comes in, he thinks that it should have that very specific language because he worked at a company like Blizzard, and he thinks that there is no way that a company like Blizzard would give up their games that are live service games. And so he thinks that the language of Stop Killing Games can only apply to single player games and can't apply to live service games. And does not go through like simple critical thinking to realize why. First of all, it doesn't need to. Second of all, if it did need to, or if it did, it actually could. It's literally those 2 points.
Activity games. When that's just not what it's about. Like, they're not being specific about that because that is not what they are specifically targeting. It is about the whole practice of destroying games that consumers have already purchased and having no end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset. So, for example, The Crew. The Crew is an example everyone is going to reference and talk about because Ubisoft is still currently in a lawsuit battling against it for what happened with this game. I've yapped about it quite a bit, so I'm not just going to regurgitate that. I'm sure a lot of you already know the story about it. But basically, you buy The Crew, Ubisoft pulls the plug on the servers, you can't play The Crew anymore, now it's just an old wet dream of what once was. And they are facing a lawsuit, and while this is in the umbrella of...
Right. So I think the complicated thing that I'm guessing PirateSoftware tunneled in on is he thinks that it would unsustainably force Ubisoft, the developers, to make a single player offline version of The Crew. That's probably what he thinks Stop Killing Games is driving for. Whereas a second alternative is they could include language that literally just says, you give up the server software and other people can pay to host servers. That's it.
Stop Killing Games, it is not the only thing Stop Killing Games is referencing when it comes to this practice. PirateSoftware is so hung up on it being single-player games that people lose access to, when that is a component of it, but not the entire focus.
Well, the short version of the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support.
Yeah, just saying an end of life plan. Even just having an end of life plan. The funny thing is, I don't even think Pirate Software gets this. If he really thinks that all of this is the craziest part of this, chat. Even if he thinks all of this stuff is impossible and that game studios can't do it, yada, yada, what that could mean when legislators work with game developers and when they actually pursued do you know what it could mean? It could just mean, just like there's an ESRB, it could mean that when you launch a game and you don't have an end of life plan for your game, you have to label that there is no end of life plan for your game. And it has to be like and is that what Stop Killing Games ultimately would want? No, but that could still be some conciliatory thing that comes out of it. Like that would literally be a consumer action, which is basically saying, hey, if you buy this game, it doesn't have an end of life plan.
So that's one thing.
Or vice versa. The games that do actually enforce and have an end of life plan get a special approved sticker for that. I don't know.
Doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting
This is what happens to a large scale multiplayer game like Roblox that could be considered influential and historical and online game. Well, I mean, again, like we haven't seen this with like the truly big ones. Like I said, like let's say Riot comes out with an MMO and everyone leaves World of Warcraft, and for Blizzard, World of Warcraft no longer makes sense to be sustainable. Something like Stop Killing Games would not say, Blizzard, you have to go and develop a single player version of WoW. Stop Killing Games would say, Blizzard, you have to release the server software and let other people host servers for WoW because of the amount of money spent on it.
Player games to single player.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single player, rebuilding everything in the entire.
No, see, this is what I'm saying. I knew, dude. See, he's doing what I used to do. Like, listen, if someone can just send this to him, like, please. Listen, Pirate Software, I was there too, man. Granted, I didn't work for as cool of a company as Blizzard. In fact, this is my genuine message to him. If you guys want to send a clip, hey, out of the nicest of my heart, I didn't work for as cool of a company as Blizzard. I worked for Riot, like the copycats of Blizzard. I don't even know what you did for Blizzard, but I had a lame job. Okay, I was a strategist. Okay, on the R&D team. I didn't have to code, didn't have to do art. I basically just got to tell people what cool shit we should do, and bullshit my way through my work, which actually was a cool job. Honestly, it was a sick job. Many times when talking to creators or players or other people, I have like pushed the glasses up on my nose and tried to be like, well, actually the game dev take is this. Sometimes you're just wrong about stuff and it's okay. I feel like in this case, you just hyper tunneled in on what you thought this meant game studios would have to do when that wasn't the case at all.
How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No,
because they would have.
I think that's what he's missing. I feel like he tunneled in on that one response when that is not. Like I said, the response could be the actual Stop Killing Games could be, yeah, maybe they do drive that. That would kill studios. I agree. That would be bad, but there's no way that would pass. Where it's like, hey, this online game, if you shut down the online servers, you now have to make the single player version of it. We know that's fucking insane, but that's not necessarily what it's asking for. It could literally, like I said, what might come of this is literally just a consumer warning. If you don't have an end of life plan for your game, a consumer warning that says that we reserve the rights to shut down the servers at any time. But that consumer warning has to appear in not just tucked away in a terms and service agreement. It might literally have to be printed on the box, just like the ESRB prints a rating on the box.
To sunset live service games as a single player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make every single live service game playable single player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No.
Yeah.
This part is more confusing than Finnegan's Wake, because nowhere in
I think the funny thing is, I feel like Charlie is more confused by his I think everyone was really confused by Pirate Software's response, whereas I get it. I get his response because I think he tunneled in on like the the initial game dev reaction to this.
On Stop Killing Games, has this even been like a talking point from anyone besides Pirate Software? I don't know where he pieced this puzzle together. Like I don't get it. Like if I'm gonna try and
I get where he pieced it together from. Like I get it. But it's also just really dumb.
Really reach here and give like a charitable explanation for this take. Maybe he's extrapolating based on the idea that if publishers have to have end-of-life plans for their games, that includes MMOs, where once the game is getting sunset, you're pulling the plug on it, you would then need to turn the game over to the community in a playable state, an accessible state, like give the code to them. Thus, it'd turn it into a single-player experience, so the onus would be on the developers to rebalance their game to be a single-player experience for them, I guess.
Great pause point. Yeah, I think he just I think he hyper focused on like what that would mean from the developer's perspective. Yeah, I think it's this. I think he hyper focused on what developers would think of this and not what the actual like lawmakers would think of this. The actual lawmakers might just say, hey, you just have to give up the actual lawmakers might say your end of life plan, you don't have to touch anything with your game. You just have to give up your server software or give up or forego the right to sue someone for hosting your game on servers that aren't yours. That might be it. It might, like I said, it might literally be as minimal as, hey, like this is cool and all, gamers, we hear you. We're going to fucking let you slap a sticker on games that, like a warning sticker that don't have end of life plans. That's it. But that's still a thing that Stop Killing Games could achieve.
I have no idea. That still just doesn't make any sense, but maybe that's the tree he's barking up with that thought process. I really don't know, because Stop Killing Games at no point ever says any of these multiplayer games need to be converted to single player. That really is outlandish. And the more I think about it, like the more nonsensical it becomes, because even in Pirate Software's hypothetical fanfic there, why would the developers need to rebalance the game? They would just turn over the code to the community and just it'd be in that state. They're no longer responsible for balancing the game. That's the whole point. They're not indefinitely supporting it.
Yeah.
They would just be responsible of leaving the game in an accessible state to the community while they would shut down the servers on their end.
Yeah.
They wouldn't need to go back through with a whole development team and tweak the game to be single player compatible. It just doesn't make sense. I really do not understand that one. But apparently a lot of people latched onto that talking point from Pirate Software as something that Stop Killing Games was asking for and how unreasonable it was. Which, if that's what Stop Killing Games was asking for, it would be unreasonable.
That would be unreasonable.
That's not what it's asking for.
Nowhere.
I feel like for games as a service, I feel like the best possible outcome for games as service, not even talking about all the other stuff, like the single player games that it could protect, but the hardest question for Stop Killing Games, I actually still think they have a great solution, which is they just give over the servers.
In there, does it say that it's directly targeting always online single player games?
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for.
I know this part is once again just reinforcing that he doesn't know what the Stop Killing Games movement is about, but I have to just show you this because it is so fascinating, because he himself literally calls out that Stop Killing Games at no point explicitly mentions single-player always online games or anything like that. And for some reason, instead of following the breadcrumbs...
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. He saw Stop Killing Games. I'm gonna explain it from a game dev that loves the smell of their own farts. Hi, that's me. I'm Blau. I used to work for Riot. I used to do this shit all the time. Love the smell of my own farts. He saw this initiative and was like, well, actually, they need to specify that it's single player only games that have always online, so that he wants to inject commentary that he thinks is smart into it. And by doing so, he latched on to like a very narrow-minded view of this all.
That would naturally lead him to the conclusion of, oh, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe because it's absent here, that's not what this is actually about. Instead, he uses it as a criticism against the Stop Killing Games initiative entirely, saying it's just too vague, it's way too vague. The reason it is not explicitly stated there is because that is not what the whole initiative is about. It is not specifically targeting that thing that you keep saying that it is.
That's the thing that he wants it to be about because he thinks that's easier to do. And yes, while it is easier to do, it's a broader initiative. I get it. That's like the low-hanging fruit, but it's a broader initiative.
I don't know how that never clicked.
But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only.
He tunneled. He literally just tunneled on this. He didn't realize that this could also apply to non-single-player games, like broader games as a service that are multiplayer online games, even an MMO. And it basically says, if you discontinue this MMO, we want to be able to host our own servers and not get sued. That's like a very loose interpretation of it.
Functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
No, that's not it at all.
This is a really strong section from Ross here because the clips that you saw moments ago were from his stream. When he took more time to watch it and digest it, he still came back in that video misrepresenting it. Like, it never dawned on him. Like, on stream, he could write it off as like, oh, he didn't grasp it in the moment. Maybe later on he did. Well,
yeah, never
then he
take
made the
things
video
on stream
where
seriously.
He still was talking about things that are just not what Stop Killing Games was about. And this was the one that really blew up and really started to kind of dismantle the Stop Killing Games momentum.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer.
PirateSoftware then goes on to talk about like the business practice of misleading consumers into thinking that what they're buying is a product as opposed to a license to a product, which is a totally separate thing. And then he criticizes.
Oh my God. Yeah. There's even another option, which is like, okay, if it's a live service game and you've spent X amount of money on it, like if you decide to fully shut down people's access to the game, you have to like pay some amount to them. I don't know. That's a crazy one. But again, these are all possibilities that lawmakers would argue.
Stop Killing Games for not being specific about that thing that he is bringing up as opposed to what Stop Killing Games is talking about. So he's using that against them for some reason. And then Ross goes into like the license talk.
I watched it once, but it seems like he was looking at second order effects of the proposed law. But what's crazy? No, but Steve Nito, I think what's crazy about this entire drama, chat, is there is no proposed law. No one said this is what is going to happen. It is a broader initiative to get the proposed laws written. Again, like you could consider Stop Killing Games could have made an impact if all they did was just say, now on the boxes of any live service game or any game that doesn't have an end of life plan, you put a fat fucking red X saying, we have no end of life plan for this game. Like, you know, like.
Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget video games. If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends. The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those.
He's exactly right. That is a huge problem. Now, PirateSoftware is correct here about these companies that will mislead consumers through this fraudulent advertising on what you're actually buying, because in a lot of cases, you don't own any of the shit that you're buying. It is pretty much a rental. You get a permission slip to access the content. That is an issue, and not making it abundantly clear to consumers that.
And I think the problem is that like PirateSoftware is saying, well, because you don't actually own it, or he's almost using that as, oh, well, because of that, this initiative will can't work. When it's like, no, the initiative could change that though, could change what language Blizzard can put in their terms of service.
That was that is what you are buying is a problem, and so too is the actual agreements, as Ross demonstrates with Blizzard, where it says they can just completely terminate it for no reason at all. It really does go against the basic idea of commerce entirely. Video games are in a totally different ball game when it comes to that, because half the time you don't realize that you're just buying an admission ticket to a game. You're not actually buying the game. You also don't know how long that's going to last. Again, to go back to Concord, that shit lasted less than a fucking rainstorm, basically.
Okay, well, good news about Concord is no one's asking to spin up the servers for that one, So
there is just so many problems. So I don't know why PirateSoftware would be so harsh on Stop Killing Games for not addressing specific things that he himself is bringing up or making up in regards to it. It just doesn't compute. It really is a video that did significant damage to.
I think it's that. It's what's weird is the things he's bringing up as to why it won't work are the reasons why it should happen.
To an actually positive initiative that aimed to help consumers in the video game space, all based on his complete misrepresentation.
It's like, yeah, we probably should
If you
look
try to
over
tell me
those
that
terms
every
and
studio
service.
needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no! He wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we spell it out.
That's the last clip I want to show from this section on the PirateSoftware video, but it's a very important one because this is something a lot of people also think the Stop Killing Games initiative is about, where developers, publishers will have to support their games forever. Until the fucking heat death of the universe, they'll have to support these games under the initiative. When that is not the case. It is very simply asking that when the game has reached the end of its life cycle, the publishers, developers don't want to work on it any longer, to turn it over to the community to still be in a playable, accessible state so the product can still exist. There is some more nuance, obviously, to how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's nuance to it, but and maybe I'm I was a game dev but did not do any of the actual so maybe I'm just a fucking idiot. But to me, isn't the most obvious thing is they literally everyone already reverse engineers and figures out these games, right? All it's basically saying is if you stop the live support service of this game that people paid for, you cannot go after people that then make servers for that game independently on their own. Would be a very simple thing.
Given publisher developer licensing and a lot of the code, the binary, that kind of thing. There is a lot at play under the hood there, of course, but it is something that Stop Killing Games isn't naive to, and it is something that is talked about. But I'm not going to dive too deep into it. I encourage you to check more in on it. But this whole belief that it is about endlessly supporting a live service game, even when it makes no sense to do so and it's beyond dead and in the dirt, is ridiculous, because that is not what it is asking for. And a lot of people think that it is. It's not. PirateSoftware got that wrong as well. Anyway, I'll stop yapping about it, but as mentioned in the beginning, most of Stop Killing Games hasn't been successful in getting change. And Ross has dedicated so much of his life to this, and it's clearly taken a big toll. Now he's doing everything he can for this last-ditch push to try and help. And there are two big things coming up that can do so. And it's what I linked at the very beginning of the at the very beginning of the video about the resources in the description. It's in regards to...
Pause, Charlie.
One is for the UK.
I have to pee.
BRB chat.
UK mention, let's go. Okay, settle down there, Brits in the chat. Settle down. Blau, thank you for guys, I want you guys to know this is the new meta, and I need you guys to be doing this every Blau, thank you for reacting to this content. It was truly transformative and creative, distinct from the original content. It has encouraged me to watch the original content and therefore garner those creators more views. They truly should be thanking you. Now, I'm not saying you guys should spam that message so that it appears a bunch in my chat logs that I could then hand over to a judge to demonstrate that I was creating transformative content, but I wouldn't be opposed to you guys spamming it. Thank you so much.
To sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries. And we've only made it just under halfway. What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction, is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms in consumer contracts. So if that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void.
He goes on to explain how powerful that can be because of what a mess that is. Because there is so much gray area with how the video games currently operate in regards to those protections, it would be a legal headache that would require an analysis of the laws or implementation of new laws that could lead to, hopefully, an improvement when it comes to gaming. So the big hurdle was the signatures, needing 1 million, and currently it's at like 460,000. So it doesn't...
This is like, I just don't understand. It's like the worst thing that could happen is you bring all this initiative forward and they just determine they can't enforce any of this stuff. That's the worst. You still could bring the initiative forward.
Reach the threshold. I've been very vocal from the very beginning about how little faith I have in petitions. But that's just from the perspective of an American. In America, petitions are more worthless than toilet paper. You're better off just writing what you want on...
They actually do work in Europe. Also, they weirdly, not petitions, but there's the props in California. Side note, chat, I hate how California does those. That's an insane thing that we do.
A note to Santa Claus and shipping it to the North Pole than you are doing anything with a petition in this country. I don't know how different it is in the EU. Maybe it really is this powerful there that could lead to substantial change and improvement when it comes to games and preservation. And
well, no, but I mean, PirateSoftware has me agreeing with Asmongold on this.
That's really all that's left for the Stop Killing Games initiative, which sucks, but that's...
To Asmongold's credit, because I did watch, I watched some of his gaming. He doesn't have the worst gaming. He doesn't have the worst gaming takes. He has some good gaming takes, actually. I like some of the Asmongold gaming takes. What the fuck does he know about politics?
The position that it's in, unfortunately. And I wanted to talk about it because I really want to see something change with the games industry. I've said that so many times recently, but it's in such a sorry state. I mean, I'm talking big budget AAA space. Indies, I think, are absolutely crushing it, absolutely golden right now in the golden age of indie games. But overall, in the big budget games and the way the industry keeps pushing things, it sucks. So,
dude, Colossus, I think that's a great point. That's honestly fair point. Whether someone agrees with Pyro or not, the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that Pyro released videos about SKG and talked about it 10 months ago and didn't talk about it since. Why did Ross wait until the 11th hour to address it and place so much blame on Pirate? Honestly, fair criticism as well.
I wanted to talk about Stop Killing Games here. Hopefully things can turn around and maybe a huge W's around the corner for the Stop Killing Games initiative. We'll see. But anyway, I want to commend Ross for his hard work spearheading all of this for so long. And that's really about it. See ya.
Thanks, Charlie. Watch Charlie's next video. Yeah, we watched, we got like a little bit through it. Oh my God, I didn't actually fully finish it.
You know, a huge ambassador of Stop Killing Games, you know, out there on the fucking front lines fighting for it. It had nothing to do with that. It was simply about the misunderstanding that he showcased, maybe unintentionally, and the misrepresentation of it that he broadcast. Again, maybe unintentionally. Which has, in turn, over the course of 10 months, misled people on what the fuck Stop Killing Games even is in the first place. Which I found to be a problem because he's never even acknowledged that as something that has happened. And because he refuses to acknowledge that, and anyone that even, like, tiptoes around that subject, he kind of treats as though they're fucking idiots, like me, for thinking that he's misrepresented something. Now, he did...
By the way, chat, just as like a general note on EQ in your life, like probably one of the best lessons, and I've learned this the hard way from being too much of a pretentious piece of shit before. Never respond to people with this like, well, actually, well, you don't understand. Never do that. It's the biggest ick. The biggest ick is when you act like you understand something and other people don't. And the only thing that I'll say that I truly understand that you guys don't understand is I truly understand what it means to be a game dev who has smelled his own farts and thinks that he's always right. And that is truly something that I understand that you guys don't understand, but that PirateSoftware should also understand, and we need to get him to understand. I can empathize with him there. We're like, listen, game devs turn creators. It's like me, PirateSoftware, and Dr. Disrespect. Like, it's not a great list, man. Like, we're not looking that good. When you're, I'm gonna say it, when your ex game dev turned content creator list has Blau as the least problematic, Blau, the ex Riot dev, as the least problematic, you're fucking cooked, dude. Oh, okay. Well, don't put me next to... Okay, I would say Mortdog is still a developer first who dabbles in content, okay?
He just posted a tweet where he said he talked to me and Josh Strife Hayes, and in that tweet, this will prove how useless our conversation was, unfortunately, there's not a single peep about misrepresenting what Stop Killing Games was about. It's more so about how the public just doesn't understand game development, and it kind of reads to me like we're all just too stupid to understand it.
Dude, this is the thing I said don't do. Don't do the pushes game developer glasses up. You guys don't understand. And by the way, I want to be very clear, chat. The reason why I'm saying don't do this, don't be like, well, you got game development is extremely difficult. It's I say don't do that because I have done that. And it is such an ick, and it is such an easy way to lose people in the conversation.
From his side of things, our conversation basically amounted to toilet paper, unfortunately. Again, I was focused on, you have done this, maybe unintentionally, you should at least say that you...
Colossus, 100% agreed.
You have, or like, you know, are you aware that you did this? And then it became more of like, nope, I didn't. You're wrong. And then he uses our conversation at the start of this for something that was not even the focus. I was not there to try and convince him to be part of Stop Killing Games. I don't think we made any ground on, like, his perspective versus mine on Stop Killing Games. He has some qualms about how difficult it would be in certain cases. I agree with that, for sure. I still think overall Stop Killing Games is a net positive for the gaming industry where something desperately needs to change with a lot of these awful practices. But for the 10 millionth time in the last 2.5 hours, it was just about him having this awareness that his coverage did mislead people, and that he, maybe not maliciously or anything, misunderstood or misrepresented Stop Killing Games in numerous instances. And the way that he talked about Ross was unacceptable. That at least made it into the tweet there about the way he talked about Ross being like a fucking used car salesman type deal and like calling everything about it ass. He at least recognized that that was too harsh. So he gave a quick I'm sorry for that, which is good. I do appreciate that, and I'm sure Ross will appreciate that as well, I imagine. But I still wanted to make this video after the conversation because I just really do.
I'm a 1.25 girly. I just need to listen. I could get through so much more React on 1.25. I kind of fucking love it. Sorry. Or if I just didn't pause as much.
Not understand. I truly cannot wrap my head around why he fights tooth and nail, coming for throats.
Wait, Doug was a former game dev? I didn't know that. What do you work on? That's sick.
For anyone that tries to...
The pausing makes it transformative. Exactly. That's why I pause it and talk about random other shit. EA for 2 years. Oh my God. Oh my, dude, it's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Former EA, former Activision, former Blizzard, and former Riot. Holy shit. This is just me trying to like put myself up there with bigger creators. You see that?
That there was misrepresentation in his coverage of the Stop Killing Games initiative. He is so hell-bent on proving he's right and everyone else is wrong that's saying these things. I just don't get it. He's just treating it like...
Just need Rockstar. Chat, I tell you guys this all the time. I secretly work for Rockstar Games, and that is why I can definitively tell you guys the entire story of GTA 6. That's right. I secretly work for Rockstar.
Like, he's got the mega mind, once-in-a-generation galaxy brain that no one can possibly understand. All us plebeians are beneath him, and we're lucky that he even graces us with streams, and we're stupid.
Is transformative a taboo concept here? Just checking so I can keep Blau simping. Tal Rashal, there's a other independent drama going on right now in the streamer content space about reacting to content. Honestly, listen, Chad, what if I pulled a full boomerang, retire from being a content creator, and then go and work for Riot? I'm quite familiar. I'm a huge H3 fan. Okay, so Tal Rashal, basically, the whole thing is, whether, I've told this to my chat, whether you are or are not fans of H3 Productions, it doesn't matter. We are privileged, especially as streamers, we are privileged to be able to watch people's content. You cannot just react to someone's content and then say, I'm doing it to steal their views. Doesn't matter what the content is.
But for thinking that he did anything wrong here in regards to his coverage of Stop Killing Games and what it's actually about.
Honestly, don't worry about the React content. Lawsuits are bullshit because damages are negligible, even if it's not all fair use. It's not. Listen, it's not about the damages. There's another precedent here. The precedent is this, chat. We as I want to speak about this in a broad sense, and I think you guys will agree with this. Can you agree with this broad statement? We as streamers, when we watch YouTube videos or other people's content, doesn't even matter if it's YouTube or not, when we do that, it is a pseudo privilege. Not even a pseudo. It is not even a pseudo. It is a privilege that we get to do that and have our content then be that content. Like we are. That is a privilege. We should not fuck with that privilege. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
It's just so...
By the way, me deep diving into that makes this transformative. Thank you.
Odd to me. Because if he would just come out and be like, yeah, you know what? Looking back on it, really reflecting, hearing what you guys are saying, I can see why this was so misleading for so many people. I didn't mean for it to be. And yeah, maybe I misunderstood some of these things. This would not have been nearly as big of a deal as it has turned into.
Sean Sullivan said, yeah, the precedent established when Ethan and Gila won a lawsuit in 2017 when they argued that their posting of reaction content was sufficiently transformative to constitute fair use. Exactly. Posting reaction content can be fair use. 100% agree. I am saying we cannot then start a precedent of reacting to content with the explicit goal of driving views away from the original content. Even if it's content you don't like, you can't do that. You can't do that.
And I went back and looked at some of his previous dramas.
Anyways, thank you for reacting to this content. It was truly transformative and creatively distinct from the original content. It has encouraged me to watch the original content and therefore garner those creators more views. They truly should be thanking you. Thanks for that message, chat. I'll be sure.
I suppose. And that is a common thread with PirateSoftware. Like in World of Warcraft, he made a mistake, but he completely refused to acknowledge the mistake, and it made it a much bigger snowball into an avalanche for him, which led to a ton of other problems. He just has this inability to, accept that he can make mistakes. Like, he does things wrong sometimes, and he needs to recognize that it's okay to be like, yeah, I did do that wrong. You're right. I was incorrect in this. And it would save so much of a headache. But he just comes across as a narcissist. He really does, unfortunately. Like, I'm not an armchair Reddit psychologist here going to diagnose him as a narcissist or anything, but, that's what it comes across as. He just refuses to admit that he ever does anything incorrectly. It admits no faults of his own, ever. Except, I suppose, to Ross here, which maybe this is the beginning of a big character development for PirateSoftware. He did apologize to Ross for how he treated him and what he said about him. I think that's great. would love to see that same kind of energy for understanding where people like myself are coming from with your coverage of Stop Killing Games and why people feel the way they do about what's happened since with your responses. But anyway, I won't keep yapping about it. That's really about it. So yeah.
I love how Charlie ends videos. He's like, I'm not going to keep yapping about it. That's it. See ya. And then just is over. One thing I do think Asmon does very well when reacting is he links to the video after watching it every time for every video in his chat. Honestly, listen, guys, all I've learned from Asmongold or about Asmongold from the Blau stream today is that he has occasionally some good takes on video games and he links the YouTube videos in his chat. Honestly, I'm going to go sub. What's his Twitch channel? I'm going to go drop him a sub. I'm kidding. I actually listen, I can like that practice. I'm going to link the video. There you guys go. That was the full video. I mean, chat, that brings up a broader point though, which is that's actually a good segue into this. No. Don't be giving me an awkward. Okay. Kidding. Cause already yeah, well, you probably find that out. No, chat. I was going to say this. I think it is okay to not agree or disagree with everything that someone says. If you guys like my content and like watching the Blau stream, you can disagree with me about certain things. As an example, I think that Connor Hellebuck, the goalie for the Winnipeg Jets, plays too conservative of a play style as a goalie, and that his performance in the regular season masks his lack of performance in the postseason because teams figure out how to play against his more conservative play style, and that more aggressive goaltending tends to be rewarded, as demonstrated by Sergei Bobrovsky's back-to-back Stanley Cups, where he plays a much more aggressive and athletic form of goaltending. You can disagree with that. Is there an issue with subbing right now? I cannot seem to sub to Blau. It just spins. Yeah, actually, that's a chat. Because you guys, if you're not subbed, I was hearing that my sub button might have an issue. If you guys could go ahead and click that and see if it's broken, that'd be really great. I'm allowed to talk about hockey, by the way, at least 5. We should do, I'm allowed to talk about hockey 5 minutes a day on this stream. All right.
Sometimes the things that
Dr. K attempts the impossible, humbling PirateSoftware. Okay. I can't gift either. Yeah, if you guys could also try that, see if the gifted sub button's broken too. If you guys could try that, that'd be great.
I think sometimes the things that I talk about in I think sometimes the things that I talk about in regards to those types of things is misconstrued as arrogance or boasting, when in reality, I'm just trying to give context.
So that is the problem right there. So I want you to listen to this phrase.
Sure.
This gets misconstrued as arrogance, but in reality, it's this.
Yeah.
That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro. Like, tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. I don't see it that way, but all right.
Right? So, oh, yeah. So you don't see it that way. You're wrong.
No.
Tal Rashal, thanks for the tier 1. I think that opinions are good to agree or disagree on, but when those opinions I think you meant like stamp on human rights. I think then you are either good or bad, i.e. things like gay rights or women's rights should not be debated, IMO. Yeah. I think the other thing that I've learned though, chat, is that people have like a different sort of propensity for what things they are and aren't okay with. Yeah. I'll get to that point in a second. I need to watch this again.
I think sometimes the things that I talk about in
Isn't that called empathy? I mean, kind of just like, you know, I'm saying some people have stricter boundaries for what they are and aren't okay with.
regards to those types of things is misconstrued as arrogance or boasting, when in reality, I'm just trying to give context.
So that is the problem right there. So I want you to listen to this phrase.
Sure.
This gets misconstrued as arrogance, but in reality, it's this.
Yeah.
That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro. Like, tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. I don't see it that way, but all right.
Right? So, oh, yeah. So you don't see it that way. You're wrong.
No.
Chat, when I was in college, it was like a pretty big lecture class on various, like, it was a lecture class on psychology. I think it was like behavioral psych 101, like big lecture class. And one of the funniest things was, I kid you not, it sounds like I'm making this story up, but I swear I can get, like, one of my U Chicago roommates, actually, Ben, was literally in the class when this happened. It was one of the funniest things, where the professor puts up on the board, they were talking about, I think it was autism. I think it's autism. And they were showing a bunch of different facial expressions of people, like, you know, like various like facial expressions showing like pain, disgust, happiness, etc. And the professor was like, so they're like, okay, so this is like a test that is sometimes administered for like testing degrees of autism. And they're like, what they've found is that it tends to be that autistic people cannot tell the differences between some of these facial cues, as well as other people. And then there was literally a student that like raised their hand, and like in a lecture, you're not really supposed to like interrupt a lecture, like interrupt a professor's like, yeah, like, and they're like, I'm looking at the pictures. They don't really seem that different though. Like, when that makes sense that they're hard to tell apart. And it was one of those like, oh shit kind of moments. Like everyone in the class is like, what? Like, that's the vibe I got from this. Or it's like, you might want to get diagnosed at that point, you know, or like, you know, going for a test, you know. Anyways, what are they going to talk about besides this? Oh, yeah. Listen, I think someone had said it earlier. I'm all for respectfully disagreeing with each other, chat. But you can also have like some standards of like, you know what I mean? Like, if someone like believes or supports some like truly heinous shit, you can be like, nah, I don't fuck with that though. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's pretty fair, right?